Good morning and welcome to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, February 25th. I'd like to ask you to join me in a salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. CAO Nielsen, any modifications to the agenda?
There are no modifications to the agenda today.
Thank you.
I move that we approve consent calendar.
Second.
Any public comment on the consent calendar? Good morning.
Good morning. Connie Beck, Health and Human Services Director. I wanted to comment on C10. C10 is the Mental Health Organizational Provider Services Agreement with Two Feathers Native American Family Services regarding the provision of children's specialty mental health treatment, therapeutic behavioral and intensive home-based services to eligible Medi-Cal beneficiaries residing in Humboldt County. In the discussion, it notes mental health operates specialty mental health services in Humboldt County and that we contract with providers to provide this service. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the work of Two Feathers and becoming certified and an org provider for Humboldt County is long and difficult. And so Director Blair Cruiser and her staff are here, and I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and say this is probably the first tribal entity in the state and maybe the country that has actually become an org provider through a county mental health system. So we've been working on this for quite a while. Her staff worked with my staff in regards to the certification. So I just can't say enough. It's really awesome. Humboldt County once again out there in the front. So thanks.
Thank you, Director Beck. Any other comments on items on the agenda?
Thank you. Linda Casera, Carlotta. I was item number 22, the Eureka Vets Building change order number 8 for $27,166.24. Is it a supplemental budget request? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Morning, Thomas Mulder. Commenting on items, I think you guys already received an email from me weeks ago regarding C14, but items 20 and 21. Hopefully by purchasing this equipment, this is leaning towards being more efficient with repairing our roads, and hopefully by these rollers, it means that we're going to actually do some pavement and some overlays instead of just blow and go type things on roads. So I support this purchase as long as it means that we're going to more effectively maintain and improve our roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Supervisor Bohn?
I don't think the Public Works, what we're experiencing right now is $7.1 million of SB1 funds into our Public Works budget, which is going to go straight towards roads into our county, into our rural counties. So I don't know if they go and blow as much as they do, as much as they can with what we fund. And that was we used to have 130 people in the roads division. We have 65 after cutbacks from years ago, long before anybody that's sitting up here. So I think the Public Works is making every effort they can in doing just what they do, because believe it or not, they travel the same roads we do and live in the same area. So they're not. So we're able to, up here with that SB1 funds, they're going to have a lot more money. It's almost like a 25–30% increase in their budget. So I'm getting kind of excited about what they're going to be able to accomplish with that. So thanks for your interest in that.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I cannot believe that Public Works is asking to replace this equipment that's only 42 years old. I mean, come on, what's the deal here? Maybe we can put these in a museum or something like that. But yeah, I'm glad to see that happening as well. I just wanted to make a quick shout out to Greg Comstock for his willingness to step up and continue to serve on the Ora Community Service District. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Supervisor Madrone. Any further comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. And that will take us on to public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone signed up or anyone who wants to speak on non-agenda items? Thank you, Ryan. We have Vernon Price listed to speak on items not on the agenda.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Madam CAO, County Council, ladies and gentlemen of Humboldt County. I come before you respectfully today and with a lot of adoration of being an ambassador of the Superior region of California for Access California. I believe you have in your packets, or you've been delivered or have been given an MHSA leadership workshop for the Superior region for March 5th, 2020 from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and a community empowerment workshop of the Superior region the following date, March 6th, 2020 from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. I would really like to review that the leadership workshop is specifically invited for our leaders of our community. The targeted audience, mental health directors, MHSA coordinators, unit division managers, community supervisors, or county supervisors, and current members of the local mental health board. If we are going to continue to receive the much needed dollars of the MHSA and utilize them in a very powerful and effective way as we have already in this community, I want to also thank the county for procuring a venue at the Aquatic Center here in Eureka. This is, something that's very meaningful to me as a consumer of our public mental health system, as a behavioral health board member, and an activist for the state of California, that we are moving forward together, not against each other, to improve not just the quality of services, but the quality of life, and building a stronger community that we all live in. So this is very meaningful to me. That Department of Health and Human Services, we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much for Healthy Communities. And I know I'm throwing this young lady underneath the bus. Megan Montgomery is a very, amazing woman getting this done. So I'm looking forward to seeing our leaders at this community, or our leadership workshop, along with the following day, our peer coach, 1, 2s, and 3s, and our community members at large, that we can learn what the MHSA really is and how it can affect our lives, and we can move forward in a very positive way. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Linda Casera, Carlotta. I want to thank Ed Denson and Fred Fletcher for exposing the criminality regarding Measure S and sticking with it to the fruition. Measure S bit the dust. Next, maybe Measure Z and Measure O. Sold to the people of safety in Humboldt, a special tax requiring 2/3 vote in the affirmative. That didn't happen. Section 25 of the California State Constitution, I'm not sure which article. Every law enacted by the legislature shall embrace but one object, and that shall be expressed in the title. And no law shall be revised or amended by reference to its title, but in such case, the act revised or section amended shall be reenacted and published at length. The fact is, Measure Z, until this April 1st, and then it'll be Measure O, both have $1 million a month fraud written all over them. California State Constitution is, it's 18 pages. You might want to give it a read. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning.
You can lift that up, Richard.
Good morning. I'm Richard Conway, the General Manager of the Humboldt County Fair Association. I appreciate the time. The reason I'm here this morning, we are having some challenges at the fairgrounds, as I'm sure you guys are aware. We lease the fairgrounds from the county. The association, as part of that lease, puts on the annual county fair. That event brings in an estimated $8 million into the local economy in the month of August. Currently, we're operating without a lease, without a use permit, and those two things are really limiting our ability to operate and generate revenue. We've been working on both of those items for 2 years. Yesterday it was brought to my attention our lease had been handed off to different staff to complete. We can't request or apply for our state funding without the lease. Again, this process has been going on for 2 years. I don't know how we're going to resolve it. We don't seem to be very close. We've been told several times the final draft is there and we're ready to move forward, and apparently we're not after yesterday's update. So that's a challenge for us. The use permit is another issue. In 123 years, the fairgrounds was never required to have one. There was never a CEQA study done. After we held some events in spring of 17, we were asked to comply with those things. We did. We've been working through the process. We thought we had our application complete in the fall. We were asked to provide additional information about concerts and music festivals that weren't included in the original discussion. They were left out, agreed upon. They were historic events. They'd be grandfathered in. We complied with that. We've since completed those reports and studies and submitted it. In the interim, we've spent close to $50,000 on the process, and we're losing 3 years of interim revenue that we average about $50,000 a year. So it's a $200,000 loss to our general fund. You guys all see our budget, you know what it is. It's not something we can afford. So without the state funds, I apologize, and the loss of the interim revenue, we're in a difficult position, and we need some help. We're fortunate the local community has stepped up and supported us through local sponsorships, and that helps us put on the annual fair. You know, in 2012, the state cut fair funding from $280,000 to $38,000. My first year at the fair was $13,000. I apologize, I'm over time. And we received $38,000. So we need to find a solution for this.
Thank you, Richard. Welcome.
Good morning. Thomas Mulder, CEO, Humboldt Redwood Healing. A couple different items to bring up. I'm going to bring up spring is coming up close. Planting season's coming up. I'd love to see Ordinance 2.0 amended for personal medical use, 200 square feet for under an acre, 500 square feet for over an acre. I think that's allowable. I don't think it's a large impact on the environment as long as they aren't sucking straight out of a stream or something like that. Just thoughts to put out there again. Other things, things that I keep noticing within the county is unfair business treatment towards different commercial activities in regards to use of rural roads, private roads. There's commercial activities that are out there permitted, non-cannabis related, that are not held to the same standards as cannabis. Myself, I've sent video evidence of roads of commercial access that does not meet fire standards out there. And this is pertaining to a cell phone tower. That cell phone tower holds petroleum, diesel fuel, and propane. Personally, I don't see any fire access safe to that spot. So what about the surrounding residents? Thinking about those. But for a cannabis operation, they have to make, every 400 feet have those pullouts and stuff like that. They may or may not have petroleum base. So I want to see parity with commercial activity with rural roads. That's all I'm asking for. If it's everyone has to have a pullout every 400 feet, everyone has to have it. If not, then have that be parity between all commercial activities on rural roads. That's all. I always ask for parity. And it's something that I think needs to be taken care of and fair treatment for all businesses, because It's otherwise it could lead to, if you give one business an unfair advantage to another business, I don't know what that could lead to. But thank you for the time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Any further comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none from the public, Supervisor Wilson.
It's just a follow-up to the recognition by Commissioner Connie Beck related to Two Feathers. And just took me a minute to digest that. And I just wanted to reiterate that when we have these community-based health organizations, you know, advance in this way, and especially within our Native American community, I think there is a certain amount of recognition, more than a certain amount. We need real recognition of that. And so I just want to say thank you for all the hard work. And I want to thank Connie for being supportive of that relationship for us to move forward with that. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Supervisor Wilson. With that, we'll go to our next item on the agenda, and this is actually from Director Beck's department. It is a resolution recognizing the Humboldt County Public Health Lab in regard to the investigation of a bioterrorism event at Pelican Bay State Prison. And welcome, everybody. I look forward to your presentation.
Good morning. Hi there, Madam Chair and Supervisors. I'm Michelle Stevens, Public Health Director. I'm here with Jeremy Corrigan, who's the manager of the Public Health Lab, and our health officer, Dr. Terry Frankovich. Thank you for the resolution, even though you haven't read it yet, but thank you, we appreciate it. We've been really looking forward to being here today to showcase and explain to you the functions of the lab and our role in the Ricin event, and to honor the staff of the Public Health Lab, who you can see is behind us. Yeah. They're amazing, and we're grateful for them. Yes.
Kind of want to take their picture with all the white coats.
Yeah, feel free. We've been planning for this presentation for a while, and we know that there's probably a lot of conversation to be had around coronavirus, and we're just asking that we get through the presentation. There is a slide on coronavirus with regard to the lab's role, but we hope that we can wait until the end to get to the coronavirus conversation. If you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Okay, and with that, I think we're ready to go.
All right, thank you. Again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to the board and share a little bit about the Public Health Lab. Like Michelle said, my name is Jeremy Corrigan, and I am the lab manager of the Public Health Lab. So our lab plays an important role in many public health functions that work to protect the health of our community every day. In your packet, you were provided with a 4-page overview of our laboratory, and the presentation today will go through a brief outline of that document. And like Michelle said, we're hoping to leave the questions till the end. So today I would like to accomplish 4 goals. The first is to unveil the DHHS-produced public health laboratory video, which provides an overview of our laboratory services. I will then go into a little bit more detail and highlight some programs of interest that we do in the lab. Next, I would like to describe the Laboratory Response Network and give you an overview of our bioterrorism program. And then we'll close with the highlights of the Pelican Bay Ricin incident. So with that, let's get this video going.
Have you ever wondered who tests water from local beaches to find out if it's safe for kids, families, and pets to play in? Or who monitors for infectious diseases to prevent outbreaks in our community? Staff at the Humboldt County Public Health Laboratory work behind the scenes to ensure the health of the county's residents and natural environment. Microbiologists and lab assistants provide environmental and clinical testing to Humboldt, Del Norte, and parts of Trinity County, in addition to operating the only bioterrorism lab in the region. Some of the lab's environmental services include water testing by request from our local state parks and tribes. Lab staff also developed microbial source tracking, an innovative tool that can pinpoint the source of contaminants at our local beaches and waterways. Community partners and hospitals rely on the lab's clinical testing services to diagnose contagious diseases, some in as little as 30 minutes. The lab also monitors for illnesses to detect and prevent outbreaks. Public Health's Bioterrorism Lab serves an important role in regional emergency response by assisting law enforcement agencies in ruling out potential biological threats. Staff also provide real-time data on the influenza virus every year, which is used by the World Health Organization to help determine the composition of the next year's vaccine. The Humboldt County Public Health Laboratory is available to respond to the needs of the community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, call 707-268-2179.
Very good.
Yes. Thank you, DHHS Media. So let's get started by taking a little closer look into our laboratory. I find it helpful to view our lab as 3 different services based on the services that we provide. So first is the environmental lab. This lab provides a variety of water testing, like drinking water testing, recreational beach monitoring, and shellfish testing services for the community. We also provide tick testing for the organism that causes Lyme disease, and also animal rabies testing. The second is the clinical lab, where we test for a variety of important public health pathogens like influenza, measles, mumps, and others. And an important part of our clinical work is clinical consultation and packaging and shipping of testing that's not performed here locally, like tuberculosis. Last is our bioterrorism BSL-3 laboratory, which is where we perform the common BT threat agents. So a very important service that we provide in our environmental lab is shellfish testing services. Shellfish is an important local industry, and our lab helps to ensure the safe consumption and sale of shellfish. We do this by providing shellfish growing water testing, oyster meat testing, and tank water testing for our local oyster growers, as well as other oyster growers in the state of California. We are one of the only 2 certified shellfish testing labs in California and considered an expert shellfish lab by the FDA, which is something we are very proud of. An additional environmental service that I would like to highlight is microbial source tracking. This is a new technology that allows us to identify the source of fecal contamination and determine if it's from human, cows, dogs, or bird sources. This information can be helpful in determining human health risk, as well as focusing vital resources and mitigation efforts. As part of my doctoral project, I plan to conduct 2 studies in the Clam Beach area, which continues to occupy top spots on the beach bummer list, to further understand the fecal sources in this region. The proposal was accepted by University of South Florida, and it will be conducted over the next 6 months. I also want to briefly mention our community outreach and educational efforts, especially on the environmental side. I regularly give tick field safety talks to local businesses. I also work with HSU and CR students by giving tours to microbiology students, and I'm currently working with the HSU engineering class on our water quality project. I also want to recognize Ella, who is pictured on the slide. She's an 8th grader from Jacoby Creek School. She's an aspiring scientist and has been working on a science fair project for 3 years, testing water and doing bacterial counts. She recently reached out to our lab to learn more about the water testing that we do in our community. She came very well prepared and had excellent questions. We also provide a variety of general clinical testing services. Surveillance of disease is a critical function of the laboratory, and the work we do is often behind the scenes. A great example is influenza testing. We subtype influenza A and B viruses, which helps us understand the viruses that are circulating in our community in real time. Additionally, we provide testing for highly infectious diseases that can spread quickly and require isolation, such as measles. Same-day results can eliminate the need for costly isolation rooms and limit contact investigations. Another good example of public health lab surveillance is salmonella testing. We have the ability to characterize salmonella isolates and link potential cases to identify and track outbreaks. The lab and the communicable disease team work closely to identify and respond to disease outbreaks with a common goal to limit the spread in the community. Without laboratory testing and confirmation, you're only guessing. Let's now start with the LRN. In February of 1999, the LRN was created as part of the Government Bioterrorism Response Program. It is an interconnected system of local, state, federal, and military labs across the U.S. and internationally. The LRN provides standardized testing in response to a bioterrorism event. Our lab is part of the LRN and provides a variety of clinical and environmental testing. In California, the LRN is made up of 14 catchment areas. Our lab is responsible for Catchment Area 1 and is responsible for Humboldt, Del Norte County, and Western Trinity counties. If you look at the pyramid on the slide, you will see the organization of the LRN based on different levels. The bottom of the pyramid is Sentinel Labs, which are hospital labs. They are the first level of identification and are trained to recognize these dangerous agents and send them to the next level of the pyramid, which are reference labs. Reference labs are responsible for confirming these dangerous pathogens quickly, which is what our lab does. The top of the LRN pyramid is for CDC, which characterizes these pathogens. The LRN is known primarily for their efforts around protecting the nation from biological threats. However, the LRN is also responsible for responding to new and emerging infectious diseases, many of which are shown on the slide. LRN labs have the proper equipment, safe facilities, and highly trained staff that allow them to respond to these new and re-emerging diseases. So I'm sure you've all heard about the novel coronavirus, which is now referred to as COVID-19. There has recently been a PCR test developed by the CDC that was given emergency use authorization and is currently the only approved diagnostic test for this virus. This test will only be distributed to CDC-approved labs. As mentioned on the previous slide, this is due to these labs having the proper testing equipment, safe and proper facilities, and highly trained staff to be able to quickly and effectively implement this test. Our laboratory is one of those CDC-approved labs that have been given permission to perform this test. However, the reagents are still being manufactured and they will be distributed to labs once available. Currently, there is no start date for this test because there's lots of factors in play. But we anticipate being able to provide local novel coronavirus testing should it be needed following the CDC's guidance. We will keep the public update as we get more information. In the meantime, laboratory staff are trained in packaging and shipping of dangerous goods. And until we have the test available locally, we will coordinate with the CD team and CDC any potential novel coronavirus testing that needs to be done at the CDC. This highlights the extreme value of having a BSL-3 laboratory in our area, as many places across the country will not have this test available. Having this test locally will expedite appropriate patient care, and it greatly improves our ability to respond and protect the community. Our lab is part of the LRN, and in order to be able to be in this program, you must test for all the BT agents listed on the slide. Some of these you may recognize, which is like anthrax, which is pictured in the upper right, and the plague, which is one of the biggest killers in human history. And the last one on the listed on the slide, ricin toxin, is the reason our lab is being recognized today. On July 23rd, our lab received a call from our local hazmat team about 2 suspicious envelopes that were sent to the Pelican Bay prison. We were told that there was a suspicious substance inside with a threat of ricin. Numerous state, local, and federal partners were required to respond together, and the lab played an important role in that response. The FBI Weapons of Mass Destruction Coordinator was contacted to assess the threat, and it was decided that it needed to be tested at our LRN laboratory. The samples arrived at our lab around 5:30 p.m. after working a full 8-hour shift preparing. Myself and 2 microbiologists, Ani and Roy, pictured on the slide, worked together that evening to process the 2 envelopes submitted by the FBI. We processed both envelopes and collected the substance inside, which is pictured in the lower right. Each envelope had a similar appearing substance inside. The first envelope only contained the suspicious substance, nothing else. The second envelope contained the suspicious substance, a written warning of ricin, and then a written warning, written threat. The FBI considered these samples to be high-risk environmental samples, which is why they needed to be processed by the LRN right away. Throughout the evening, my team worked very carefully but with good pace. Testing these dangerous pathogens can take several hours, and we perform many tests to identify them, not just one. We will culture for them, which is shown in the upper left, essentially growing the bacteria on plates. We needed to extract the DNA from the sample using an automatic extractor shown in the upper right, and we used the DNA extracted to perform PCR on the sample using our PCR machine, which I call our CSI white box, shown in the lower left. Lastly, we provide testing for ricin toxin, shown in the lower right. The point of this slide is that it takes a lot of a special BSL-3 facility, specialized equipment, and highly trained staff to get accurate and reliable results, but it takes time. About 12:20 a.m., we got the results, which shocked us. It was positive for ricin toxin. This is the first time that it's ever been, a public health lab in California has detected a positive ricin. This prompted the FBI to partner with the military and fly an FBI agent to Eureka to pick up the evidence, the samples, and take it to their lab for confirmation. A couple days later, we sent CDC their samples for confirmation. We did so safely and according to regulation. Both the FBI and the CDC confirmed that this sample was ricin positive. I am pleased to announce that as of Friday, the San Francisco grand jury indicted a suspect for mailing this ricin. They were charged with the attempted transfer of a toxin for use as a weapon, which can carry a life sentence if convicted. The stellar and professional work conducted by the Public Health Lab helped make this possible. As a result of this incident, the lab has been recognized by the CDC and the LRN for our efforts, and I have been invited to work on a special work group to improve ricin testing in the LRN nationally. So I'd like to close with some appreciation and acknowledgements. Our lab cannot function without numerous people and programs supporting us. I want to take this opportunity to thank DHHS admin, building maintenance and facilities staff, Public Works, the architects, procurement staff, fiscal staff, IS staff, and countless others that help keep the lab functioning at its best. I also want to thank the Board of Supervisors for their support and opportunity to share about the laboratory today. I'm happy to provide any board member a tour of the lab if they're interested. I especially want to thank our community partners for choosing to use local public health lab services. And last but not least, I really want to thank the amazing scientists that work passionately every day for the lab. Each and every one of them cares deeply about the community that they live in, which is demonstrated by the dedication and excellence they exhibit daily. We like to say we are small but mighty, and we will continue to work behind the scenes to keep the community safe. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. Supervisor Bohn.
What do you want me to be?
Director.
Okay, I can do all those things. I want to, seriously, I remember watching a few years ago, it's been a few since we put the new air handlers in and everything else, and I'd been on a tour, and you guys are in a very old building, and I knew we were spending more money on the air handlers and the heating than the building was worth, but I think it's worked out really well, and seeing what you're doing over there is great. I was one of these guys that was somewhat amazed 8 years ago that you guys did the oyster testing, and I see some of our bigger oyster farmers are here, and I know they're appreciative. And I don't think the public realized it till Oyster Fest last year. But being on with a group that cooks 8,000 to 10,000 oysters every year, there was a little bit of panic, and I really appreciate you guys buckling down, going over your paperwork, checking everything else, and then finding that we could make it work for the public. So I think you guys deserve a little kudos for saving that day more than anything else. So it's not how we got there, it's just you followed up and you made it work. So I really appreciate that. And I know that with our public health officer and everything else, we're getting a dose of coronavirus or COVID-19. And I think people have to realize that, you know, over 14,000 people died last year from influenza in the United States. Over 250,000 were hospitalized. So we have an influenza, basically a flu that's on steroids coming through right now. And I really appreciate, we've got a lot of phone calls about how we handled the 2 people that traveled back in. I really appreciate that they were so open and willing to do what they did, because everybody thought they should have been in a locked room, airtight room and everything else. They were safe at home, they were lowly tested, and I think you guys performed, you know, according to everything, the CDPH and the CDC. And I think you impressed them on that because our protocol was handled so well. So we were prepared. I want to thank St. Joe's Hospital. I think they did everything they could because I think it was a shock to everybody's system. But thanks for all you guys do over there. You guys all look good in your new white coats today, too. You guys, do I have a clean one? I got to go to the board.
They're all clean.
Good job. They don't stay that way, do they?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I didn't realize I was going to be in the right fashion mode today, but glad it worked out. You're always in the right fashion mode. That's because I follow your lead. I just did the opposite. But yeah, you know, I was excited to hear that you guys were going to be here today because I've always thought that the lab is an amazing resource that nobody knows we have. I do remember when Supervisor Sundberg and I began years ago and we took a tour, you know, and it's scary. You know, we're putting on the white stuff. I remember he broke out profusely. And I mean, you just are sweating because you're going, what am I walking into? I am actually in a room where people are potentially dealing with very, you know, very scary substances. And from that moment on, I thought, you know, it's one of those things people drive by every day and they have no idea what's really happening in there. So when I heard you were going to be here today to talk especially about the Ricin event, I was really happy to hear that. And in light of what's going on also, and as Supervisor Bohn alluded to, you know, a lot of community members have questions and they're concerned, and there's an amount of fear that people have. And I'm hoping that in today's, you know, presentation that others can see it. Perhaps we can, you know, make sure the news gets out there that the team that we have here is very professional. You are one of the few in a wide area who can even handle these types of situations, and obviously you're highly thought of by the people at CDC, and you know, they trust us to do the right thing, and it's great that we have you here as a resource. And it is hard for us. I'm hoping, you know, in the conversation I don't have direct questions regarding the coronavirus, other than hopefully you can give us some conversation that we can share with people so that we can kind of bring the level of fear and concern down, because I think it's just getting ramped up because people are feeding off of each other, and of course they see it on the internet, so it must be true. And obviously we know a lot of what's out there is not right, and I think it sounds like there might have been some of that going on at you know, in some other forums recently as well. But thank you for what you do, and I do think we're really, really fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too want to congratulate you on your excellent work and diligence for our community, so thank you for all of that. I noted the comments about the Clam Beach area and the fecal coliform, and Lufenholtz Beach was also on that list of the dirty beaches for fecal coliform contamination. And it's so wonderful that you folks are able to get out there and do all the testing, and then in partnership with the communities in Trinidad, we formed the Trinidad Bay Watershed Council that took on dealing with the fecal contamination. So the first step is to identify the problems, which your lab is so critical in doing, and then the next step is partnering with the community to implement improvements to reduce the contamination. And that's what we've done in Lufenholtz Creek with state funding through the Watershed Council. We've been able to repair and replace dozens and dozens of septic tanks that were failing and other things like that. So really appreciate your work. It's crucial to the next steps to actually cleaning up the environment. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I will open it up to public comment. I have plenty to say to you guys after that. But I do want to say, first of all, I think that video is great, and I hope you have it on the web. I think people are more and more interested in the job that you do now that it's kind of hitting close to home. But I'm incredibly impressed with your response to the Ricin. That gives, I think that should give a lot of people a lot of faith in your work, that you stepped up and within a few hours were able to move that forward. So thank you for that, and thank you for your dedication, staying well beyond your 8 hours. And I'll open it up to public comment. I have lots more to say. I open it up to public comment. Welcome, Commissioner Dale.
Good afternoon, or good morning, I guess it's still good morning. My name is Greg Dale. I am a shellfish farmer in Humboldt Bay, and I would like to thank all of these folks for their professionalism, their dedication, and all the hard work that they do. They never say no. We ask for exceptional, above and beyond effort from these guys. They always say yes, largely thanks to you guys that say yes to them. All right, so I appreciate the board for their support of the lab, but I know Jeremy's not much to look at.
Oh my goodness.
But
Where did that come from?
That's why they make those big white helmets with the dark mask on it. But
Jeremy, get him one. People would appreciate it.
We're going to start saying no.
I can honestly say I've been to meetings with Jeremy when directors of the National Lab for FDA respects his opinion and asks him questions. What we don't realize is the value and the intelligence that comes along with this group of people. They are, bar none, second to no one. They are, the lab we have here in Humboldt County is widely recognized around the country as one of the best labs, specifically for shellfish, but for other things as well. And I think that doesn't come by accident. It comes by hard work, it comes by organization, and it comes by commitment. And they have it, and we're very, very fortunate for it. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Todd Van Herp, Humboldt Bay Oyster Company, here to support my lab and echo what everybody else has been saying. They are a very professional, highly qualified group of people that are always saying yes, and they are reliable, and the work that they do across the street in that little lab is very important to my business, very important to the community, and I think they deserve all the recognition here and deserve our thanks. And Jeremy, I think you're a fine-looking man. Thank you very much.
Well, yours are passing.
Wow. Welcome.
I think you're blushing. Hi, good morning. Jen Calt with Humboldt Baykeeper, and I'm here to echo all the appreciation for the County Public Health Lab and Jeremy in particular, who has worked really hard to develop these protocols for the microbial source tracking so we can identify the sources of bacteria at our local beaches and our local waterways. I think what Jeremy didn't say, but I think is still true, this is the only county public health lab that is capable of doing that. And so when Humboldt Baykeeper gets grant funding to do sampling, we can take our money to the local county health lab rather than send it to a commercial lab in Florida, which costs more and is far, far away. And Jeremy's working really hard to try and understand the sources of bacteria at Clam Beach, which has been in the news for 6 years running as being in the top 10, if not the top worst polluted bacteria pollution beach in California. And in fact, we're going to start sampling tomorrow in Jolly Giant Creek for the next phase of our study. And so we just really appreciate the supervisor's support for the county health lab. And also the Regional Water Quality Control Board has supported the public health lab to develop these methods. And so we can do these studies to try and figure out where the pollution's coming from without them. And hopefully we'll be able to work on reducing that pollution once we know the source. Science doesn't happen quickly, so we've been working on this for about 4 years with Coast Seafoods and with other community partners, and we couldn't do it without the county health lab. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jen. Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Wilson.
Well, this definitely gets my nerd going here. I'm really happy about that. As a water quality person myself, done plenty of that lab work. But I want to say that I'm really happy about the recognition of kind of the bigger highlights that we have here and the sort of more dramatic things. But really, the day-to-day sort of pedestrian level work that a lab like Humboldt County has is so important in all the things we don't see happen. Outbreaks of dysentery and other things that we, on our everyday level, keep us healthy and safe. And I just want to, really respect and appreciate that. I mean, it's really fundamental. It's not just the highlights, which what we're talking about, the recognition. It's really every day help holding, civil society together by making sure we don't get sick en masse, and that's really, really important, and that function. So I just want to just give you my heartfelt thanks, and yeah, just and I'm really looking forward to more of the source identification. I really want to geek out on that. I'm really excited about the DNA part of that. That's going to be really fun, and I think Humboldt County will again be a leader within the scientific community nationally for that, and recognized for that, and I really appreciate those efforts.
Supervisor Bohn?
And I think you said it, and I wasn't sure because somebody said it to me yesterday. I happened to spend a lot of time out in the woods, and I tend to get more ticks than anybody. I must have good blood. But the other night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up because there's something on my chest, and I've got a new person living on my body. So I go in and I do the anti-screw and put a little heat to it and everything else, and sure enough, I break its head off. And so then I take a knife to my chest at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm digging on my chest, going, I'm not going to, But if I take that little bit of, yeah. Nobody was at the office. I called. Where were you? But if I take what that little part is, can you check it for Lyme disease, knowing that only about 10 to 15% come down? But can you guys, if I bring that in as somebody from the public, and just have it checked so at least it takes some of that incubation period, and you don't have to go
down. Yeah, what we do is we'll identify it for free because there's only one type of tick in Northern California that carries Lyme disease, and that's Ixodes pacificus, which is the western black-legged tick. So often from time you'll find dermacenter ticks on your dogs. They don't carry Lyme disease. So we identify it for free, bring it up to us, and then if it's testable, meaning if it is intact and it has all of the guts inside, then we can go ahead and test it for you.
Most of the guts were inside. The parts that weren't inside me were inside us, so.
Yep, we can look at it and determine that.
Somebody asked me yesterday, because we were checking for ticks after we went in, and you might give your phone number so people can know and know where they can go, because I think it's important, because I had no idea. And so for the next 10 days, every time I coughed or felt sore, I'm going, oh, hell, here it comes. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Bring it in with like a moist cotton ball so it doesn't dry out. That's the key.
Keep it happy, okay.
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very quick follow-up on the Clam Beach part. I appreciate that you're going to be able to dial down into the sources. And a lot of times when we have situations like this, people in the community start getting afraid that, okay, here comes the government, they're going to regulate us, and they're going to say, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I want to waylay those fears, because in Trinidad, with Humboldt's Beach, we didn't follow that process. What we did is brought all the stakeholders together in the watershed, first having identified sources, and failing septic systems were identified as a likely cause of contamination. And so rather than coming in and regulate people with a stick, what we did through that stakeholder process is created a watershed plan, and then got significant funding from the state of California for through the Clean Beaches Initiative to come in and partner with landowners to provide them with resources to repair their septic systems. So that's the kind of approach that isn't onerous. It isn't just government coming in and dictating things. It's government working with communities and those stakeholders to find solutions and provide resources to help implement that. So I just want to make sure people aren't all of a sudden thinking, oh my God, here comes the government. It really has been an incredible process, and we have documented that in Humboldt's Creek, that beach has gotten cleaner. For a number of reasons, including these. So anyway, again, partnerships, it's all about that. So thank you.
So I did want to, first of all, say again, the ricin incident was amazing, and we are going to have a resolution today to honor your work on that. Also, just people are talking about their personal experience. I know that I relied very heavily on your lab when I was taken with scary bacteria. And it really was important for the community to know how widely it was spread and what kind and how dangerous it was. And as we look right now at the coronavirus, I would be interested to hear from the doctor and from Michelle what the community can know and cannot know, and what they might do to prepare in case this were to go further.
Good morning. Nice to meet everyone. So I guess specifically to the question of what the community can and cannot know.
Exactly.
What I would say is that I think this is a difficult thing for people to sometimes accept, but we are bound by patient confidentiality unless there is an important public health reason to violate that. So identifying someone by their sex or their age or the town in which they reside, if it does not impact the risk to that particular community in a different way than anywhere else, is not a piece of information that we give out. We all live in a rural community. It does not take a whole lot of information sometimes to identify someone. And when you think of it, the individuals who end up being monitored or isolated because they're ill are already accepting a tremendous amount of intrusion into their personal life. They are at home. We are contacting them constantly and monitoring their health status in a way that no one else who's ill undergoes. So we are really appreciative of the fact that people are cooperative and helpful with that process. And if it is an important community health risk, if we are not certain, for instance, who people have contacted, then we want to reach out and we give out more information to find those people. And that just isn't the case here. That may change over time as this evolves.
So that's a very important point, that you're really, at least particularly at this time, convinced that you already know who's been in contact and there's no other.
Yes, because it's close contacts at this point that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I think we're seeing signaling from the Centers for Disease Control as this outbreak expands internationally. Language initially from the CDC was that we may see some community level transmission. If you look at the CDC information now, it says it is likely we will see community transmission.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this virus is coming. I think we have been able to forestall it, and that has given us some time to learn more about it. But I think ultimately it is extremely likely that we will see this circulate more widely in the United States.
So is there a protocol established now with this in terms of how public health officials would respond, or private doctors if somebody presents in a certain way?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, from the very beginning of this, information has been shared with healthcare providers and health systems about what to do if someone appears on your doorstep. As you know, the federal government put in screening procedures at airports for individuals coming in from China. So in the ideal situation, people are identified as possibly at risk. They are informed about the need to call ahead if they have symptoms before presenting at a healthcare provider's office, so that everyone has time to be prepared and protect healthcare workers and any public. And then they're moved directly either into inpatient care or into their home where they can be monitored.
So are you seeing now an increase in a number of samples that are coming your way, or not yet?
No, that is, no. Not, our role right now is if we are notified about a traveler who may be at higher risk, our role is to reach out to that traveler and monitor them through that incubation period. If we have someone who is actually at risk and develops symptoms, such as we faced with our confirmed case, then we basically put in motion the monitoring procedures. So in this instance, as I think St. Joseph's has put out there, these individuals arrived masked to the emergency department as appropriate. They were immediately taken into a negative airflow room, and staff who interacted with them were using appropriate protective equipment, and then these individuals went home. And so I feel like it really successfully minimized the number of people who were exposed to these individuals. So in this instance, the process worked well. If we begin to see community-wide transmission of this virus, obviously we will no longer be putting people in isolation. If it begins to look like our flu season in terms of the number of cases, that's not possible, and our strategies change.
Great. One other quick question then to Supervisor Bass, but so in terms of the general public, just in case there's something out there, what is the best practice?
Well, I think we've been emphasizing in our communications to the community that it's a respiratory illness. And so the traditional guidance we give about influenza, for example, is perfectly appropriate right now. You know, that's staying home when you're sick, coughing into your sleeve, and certainly if you have any risk factors for coronavirus, to notify a healthcare provider before you go in is important. But I think the final thing is good hand washing. It's not sexy, but it's effective. And I think it's a really important strategy to limit spread. Oh, hand sanitizer, there you go. Yes, if you're not near water, hand sanitizer is excellent. And so those measures are appropriate right now. If it becomes more widespread, we will be talking about things like social distancing, about not having large gatherings, about whether schools remain open, what we do in some of these large public spaces. Those are all public health strategies depending on the level of circulation of the virus.
Thank you very much. That's very, very helpful. Supervisor Bass?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a lot of my questioning was along the lines of what you just asked, and trying to help folks who are calling and who are really worried and they're angry because we're not telling them where. And it's like, it's important to, you know, talk about the patient confidentiality, but it's also like, we're not making our own rules on this. I mean, you're basically following the CDC guidance, right?
Exactly.
And so, I mean, so there is protocol that's set, and people may not like it, but it is scary. I mean, you get on a plane now and you kind of look around you, but it's been that way. You're going to be close to people in a lot of different instances, but I think people were just concerned if they'd been anywhere in the same space that someone had been, but because we don't really know how it's going to form, how that may move on in the future about how easily you can get it or not. We can't just jump to the worst conclusions and make everybody stay inside.
Exactly.
I mean, and it's
and
just
at
like,
this point, it wouldn't be warranted. But again, it's important to remember the messaging from CDC is still that any individual is at low risk right now because of the small number of cases in the country as a whole. But we've seen in Japan and South Korea and other places that certainly can change in a fairly short period of time. So we're being really vigilant for that.
well, and I know in speaking with Orange County, an Orange County supervisor yesterday, they're all pretty concerned right now because they're looking for more places to put larger amounts of folks who have been exposed or been, tested as positive, and it's like, so I think, the situation we're going through, if I look between where we're at right now and where that community is right now, I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that we have our eyes really closely on what's happening, and we have it, pretty much narrowed down. So.
Honestly, my suspicion is if we get to a point where very large numbers of people are having to be, or theoretically would have to be quarantined and such, we're probably at a level where there's enough community transmission that's not going to be an effective strategy.
Yeah. Supervisor Bohn?
Well, I think with the current, we had 16 and everybody was saying, well, we got 2 in Humboldt. So I think we have to realize that we're a very rural county, and I think this just goes to show, much like our lab and the rice incident and everything else, going back to St. Joe's health system, they knew exactly what to do, and they contacted, and every protocol was followed way ahead of actually saying, oh, we've got an issue here, because everybody was kind of saying, well, it's not here. And you have to realize, I think we're way north of 80,000 cases worldwide now, coming into 100, but we're really close to 30,000 people that have gone through the system and been cured of it also, and are testing negative. So it is cycle. The same people that are vulnerable to influenza, which this basically are the same people that are having the same issues with the fatality rates. So I think I think there has to be a level of trust, and we're seeing what we're capable of doing up here in Humboldt County. And I think we have to, because CDPH and the CDC, we're following those guidelines to the T, and St. Joe's Health System, and I'm sure Mad River and everybody else has the same efforts. But my question is, if you start to have these, should they call you first? Would you like to hear it at the health department? Would you like because a lot of times their care provider may not be available, and you guys may be able to, so we can explain, don't go anywhere. Don't go to Walgreens because they're not going to have anything to fix you. Don't go anywhere public. Kind of said, have somebody bring you something if you need it, and let us work through this so we can make sure you don't have it. And I think, I don't know, I think that's what Supervisor Bass was asking. If somebody has these conditions, have gone through San Francisco or gone through an international airport and have a feeling, what should that person do exactly? Should they call you, call their care provider?
Sure. And when they do come through airport screening, they're given a card that explains to them what they should do. And that includes either contacting local public health or contacting their provider if they develop symptoms, for sure, ahead of presenting for care. And of course, we get notified then about those individuals coming into the area, and we reach out and contact them and provide them with written guidance and ongoing daily contact as we monitor them, so that hopefully we interrupt that possibility of someone presenting on.
And I'm sure, and I apologize that I don't know, I'm sure this is probably already on the county website on what protocols to take. So I think if we make that front and center, just to pull up the website, everybody will know exactly what to do, so.
Yes, on the news releases that we've issued, the number at the bottom, we give instruction for where to call. 268-6500 is our communicable disease unit, and so that's where the public should call if they have questions. And then there's we have communicable disease nurses that can answer more specific questions if they feel like they might have symptoms or they were exposed in some way. So absolutely. We also are committed to issuing news releases and updating folks and the public and answering concerns that we repeatedly hear, such as yesterday's news release around businesses and what they should be doing. We're going to issue another one today around the new information coming from the CDC or the new language coming from the CDC. And you know, if we, to the extent new information is available and the public needs to know it, we will absolutely be releasing information to folks via news releases and continually doing the media interviews that certainly Dr. Frankovich has been doing. I think 16 in one day, the day after we got the positive test. So, you know, if the community, we are getting phone calls and we are taking those phone calls and tracking the types of things that people are asking about and thinking about what information is the CDC saying to address those questions that we can issue to rely on. We're having phone calls with the state Department of Public Health and CDC daily, given our situation and what's going on around the country and around the world. So I feel pretty confident that in the news releases, we've got the information out there. There's also links to the CDC information and the news releases that we've issued on our Humboldt County webpage via Humboldt Health Alerts. So if anybody goes to Humboldt County or humboldtgov.org/Humboldt Health Alert, they can have access to all of that. We've pulled the more salient information from the CDC and put it there. So if anybody has questions, they can call Public Health for sure.
And
thank you.
Through the chair, I don't think we can give enough information. I really appreciate that, and I want to kind of apologize to the doc because you kind of want to trip on a cruise boat, and then they gave you a bucket and told you it was the Titanic. So you've only been here a few weeks, and says, "Hey, how do you like us so far?"
Great way to meet people.
It really is. But the thing is just with the lab, with everything we can do, and with what you're doing, I think you've shown that Humboldt can react, and Humboldt reacts really well. So for that, I personally thank you, because I've been telling people, I've got a lot of seniors, as we all do, and they're concerned, and rightfully so. And you can't say, nah, don't worry. No. Worry, be careful, live your life. Right. And I think that's the message you're getting out there. So to all of you, I appreciate being able to tell people that. So
thank you. And I think it is a really good message that you're giving back to people, which is, it is not that we are saying you don't need to worry about COVID-19. We're saying the immediate risk to you is low in your community, but this is all unfolding. The good news is that some of the numbers coming out of China suggest that more than 80% of the cases are very mild. But of course, as you mentioned earlier, it's the elderly, the people with underlying medical conditions who are always most vulnerable. So we're watching that.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Also welcome you, Dr. Frankovich, and you really came in with a boom, didn't you?
As I've said, flowers would have been fine. But I'm really glad that I've been doing this in Michigan. I was doing this for the last 11 years. So it's the role is not new to me, although Humboldt is. So.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I will remind my colleagues we have a resolution that we'd like to pass, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass the resolution, which, that's it.
Second, and then I had a comment I wanted to add.
Absolutely.
Well, and this was just in regards to your, the doctor was saying she's new to Humboldt County, but you're really not that new to Humboldt County. You were here before.
Well, it was about a 30-year hiatus, so everything looked
Nothing's
familiar
changed
when I came back.
No, but it's like you do have
Yes,
some Humboldt
I
County
do.
roots to you.
That is true. There was a good reason I came back.
Just for this.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second, and in the interest of time, I won't read out the full resolution, but I will say, now therefore be it resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors hereby recognize the Humboldt County Public Health Lab and its staff for their dedication and efforts in investigating the Pelican Bay State Prison bioterrorism event, and encourage all community members to recognize the Public Health Lab staff for their daily behind-the-scenes work and dedication to the health and safety of our local community. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you guys so much.
Now go get your jackets dirty.
So we do have a sale, but we also have a time certain here. And so for those who are following the agenda, item I will come after item K. So we will go now to the Public Works Department and the Volunteer Trail Stewards Program and Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. Welcome, Hank.
Good morning, Chair Fennell and our board. This item I'm Hank Seaman, Deputy Director with Public Works, and this item addresses two ways in which the community has been actively engaged in supporting management and expansion of regional trails in Humboldt County. And people have been driven to support trails for really 25 to 30 years, and people are motivated for a variety of reasons: to increase transportation safety, to create opportunities for active living and healthy living, to have access to the bay and natural features, for meaningful experiences, also for equity, to allow transportation that doesn't depend on a vehicle and the costs of motorized transportation, and really to create vibrant communities. And so today we're going to talk about two aspects of community support for trails. The first aspect, there's an organization called the Humboldt Trails Council, and one of their longstanding programs has been the Volunteer Trail Stewards. And really, they've been working throughout the county on existing trails, including our Hammond Trail in McKinleyville. And so the Volunteer Trail Stewards provide monthly work days, and our park staff organize the work. We provide tools, we provide coordination and direction, and then the Volunteer Trail Stewards provide all the coordination for the volunteers, and which takes a lot of effort. And really, they've achieved incredibly meaningful work on our Hammond Trail, and that alleviates our costs and makes our trail safer, and improves our facilities and extends the longevity. So really, just some highlights. Looking at all the trails that the Volunteer Trail Stewards have worked on last year in 2019, they provided a total of 3,647 volunteer hours, including 539 hours on the Hammond Trail. And then, in a few months, we'll be bringing the trail plan for the McKay Community Forest to your board for approval. And the volunteer trail stewards have pledged to assist in the trail building, and that trail plan right now proposes 27 miles of trails in the McKay Community Forest, and so we really expect to rely on not just the labor, but the expertise of the volunteer trail stewards. And so there is one action item today. We're recommending that the board approve a memorandum of understanding between the county and the Humboldt Trails Council for continued implementation of the volunteer trail stewards. This MOU parallels agreements that the Trails Council has with other public agencies, and it really documents shared understandings of the roles of the different groups, also provides insurance and indemnification and points of contact, and then it also contains a provision where the county would provide a certain amount of funding for the total number of volunteer hours up to a cap of $3,500 per year. I would like to just show some images of the volunteer trail stewards. Here's work on the pedestrian bridge over Widow White Creek on the Hammond Trail. Here's work rebuilding a stair system on the Hammond Trail leading down to the Mad River. Here's work on the trail leading from Clam Beach up to Vista Point. Here's work on the Eureka Waterfront Trail. Here's a photo showing, a representative photo of the kind of the cross-section of members of our community that are involved with trail stewards.
Is Santa Claus in there?
Yes, this work was done in December.
Good eyes and the reindeer.
Good guy.
And then here's a few images showing trail reconstruction in the Arcata Community Forest. So this is similar to what we'll be seeing in the McKay Community Forest shortly. So, really over these, more than 10 years of work, individuals within the Trail Stewards program have really developed advanced trail building skills. So here's Dennis Houghton showing people how to use a grip hoist to move a large log for a crib wall. They're also able to do, significant structural work on stairs. Here's volunteers doing work on surfacing to make a trail, firm and stable. Here's Reese Hughes using a vibratory portable compactor. Reese has been one of the champions for the volunteer trail stewards for many years. And really one of the keys to success for the volunteer trail stewards is organizing opportunities for meaningful work and also making it social. And so it really promotes social cohesion, and there's a role for everybody, whether it's doing labor, whether it's helping with coordination, whether it's providing meals and other support for the laborers. And really, I think what this program encapsulates is that the community has really been motivated to provide a labor of love to help expand and maintain our trail system. And then the second item for this discussion is just to highlight the success of the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. The Humboldt Bay Trail Fund was established in early 2017, and it was established by community members and business owners, and they were responding to the lack of really sustainable state funding for trail maintenance. And all the local agencies really have to struggle to find ways in their budget to sustain trails, and that has been a limiting factor in terms of our openness and willingness to take on expanded trails. And so, responding to that need, the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund was established. It's administered by the Humboldt Area Foundation, and there is a committee that makes decisions on funding. There are 4 citizens and 3 public agency representatives who make those decisions. And in 2017, they established 4 priorities. Those are shown in the lower left. Priority number 1 is supporting maintenance and rehabilitation of trails with an emphasis on community volunteers. And then the other priorities are emergency repairs, trail amenities, and then a cost share to help public agencies leverage federal and state grant funds. And so, the establishment of the Trail Fund gives public agencies, a level of security that there's this backing, community backing, in the event that we have significant maintenance and rehabilitation needs. So there's been really incredible community support for the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. At the end of 2019, the fund balance was $371,000. That reflected over 450 individual donations, and then many hundreds of donations at Eureka Natural Foods and Wild Berries. And then the Trail Committee has allocated funds to support the volunteer trail stewards and supporting the work that we saw just a few minutes ago. And then there's also a working group that has really been active in stewarding the donations to the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. So I just wanted to highlight Carol Vandermeer. She's really put in tremendous effort the last few years, and there she is tabling at Eureka Natural Foods. Rick Littlefield has been was one of one of the originators of the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. Some of the other early originators were Judy Hodgson, Don Banducci, Jennifer Rice, and then Wild Berries has also been a very generous donor. And this just shows the rapid increase of the fund balance, and the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund Working Group has developed a stretch goal of achieving a fund balance of $500,000 by the start of the Humboldt Bay Trail South project. And so just briefly, I wanted to provide an update on that project. That's a project that's being led by the county. Over 25 years ago, there was a vision for connecting the communities around Humboldt Bay with a network of trails, and City of Eureka and City of Arcata have been successful. Eureka completed 6 miles of their waterfront trail. They're working on projects to expand that trail southward towards King Salmon. Eureka got started in the 90s to try to revitalize the waterfront, and that was a citizen-led effort. Rick Littlefield and Connie Miller and Jennifer Rice and others. And then Arcata started in the late 90s, and they realized that the 101 corridor was a barrier for non-motorized use, and the absence of safe, separated facilities was a deterrent from most people from being comfortable riding between Eureka and Arcata. And so they advanced a project that ended just north of the Brackett Industrial Park. And so Humboldt County is leading the 4-mile project that will connect those 2 trail segments. And so we started with the planning and technical studies back in 2013, and then in August of 2018, your board approved the environmental review document. And then early last year, the state awarded significant funds for the construction of this project. And it's a major infrastructure project in a tight corridor. We're improving and expanding the rail prism. We're making improvements to the shoreline protection where it's been damaged by erosion. We're adding 3 new pedestrian bridges. We're doing major work on the Eureka Slough Bridge, and that includes a design that allows cooperative use with the speeder cars of the Timber Heritage Association. We're also planning to install a cable barrier that would provide enhanced safety between the highway and the trail. And so we're on track to submit our permit applications next month. Our goal is to be on the Coastal Commission agenda in October, and then sometime in 2021 to initiate construction. And just finally, thinking back 25 to 30 years when there was the vision of connecting the communities around Humboldt Bay with a trail, there was also the vision of connecting Arcata and Blue Lake with the Annie Mary Trail. And the Friends of the Annie Mary Trail are a community group that's really been active in fundraising and advocacy for that. And then these trail efforts really got a boost 2 years ago when Senator McGuire advanced his Senate bill that would change the mandate of the North Coast Railroad Authority to advance trails. And so his office, and that bill was approved by the governor. They're going through this transition period, and they have this vision of the Great Redwood Trail that would, connect Humboldt Bay with the communities southward and then into Mendocino and Sonoma counties. And so, this trail segment will be built in phases, and I envision a phased approach of focusing on connecting communities first. I think one of the keys to success will be continued active involvement from community organizations. So that ends the staff report, and we could invite public comment, including the president from the Humboldt Trails Council.
Thank you, Hank. I will open it up to the members of the Humboldt Trails Council to talk with us. Representative. Can you bring the mic up, please? Great, thank you.
I'm Michael Proul, a board member of the Humboldt Trails Council. Humboldt Trails Council is a nonprofit agency with the VTS, Volunteer Trail Stewards, being our largest and most active program. VTS currently provides trail maintenance, as Hank indicated, currently 10 trails in Humboldt County. 7 of those trails schedule monthly trail workdays. Each trail has a trail coordinator who organizes the work to be performed for each workday, coordinates with staff from the city or the county or the land trust that actually owns the trail, and contacts the VTS volunteers with information about workday location, time, etc. So there's a great deal of volunteer organization that goes into the trail coordinator's role. Until last year, all Trail Council and VTS activities were performed by volunteers. Currently, that's still about 90 to 95%. As of last year, the Humboldt Trails Council arranged for a part-time staff person who coordinates the activities of all of the VTS trail coordinators. At this point, I'd like to introduce that person, who's the VTS coordinator, Renee Thibodeau. Renee provides coordination and support for all of the trail coordinators, purchases supplies, materials, and tools for the workdays and the projects, houses all the information that we maintain about VTS volunteers, arranges publicity about the VTS program to help recruit more volunteers, because we have more trails coming on board, as you know, and much more. The main point I wanted to highlight is that Humboldt Trails Council is primarily a volunteer organization that focuses energy and work effort to advocate for the development, maintenance, and use of trails in Humboldt County. Humboldt Trails Council provides a vehicle for many volunteers to advocate for the development of new trails, including the Humboldt County section of the Great Redwood Trail, also to maintain the many trails that currently exist, thus encouraging the cities, the counties, and the land trusts to feel free to develop more trails because they have assurance that there is a vehicle for maintaining those trails. Also to encourage all Humboldt County citizens to get out on a trail, hike, bike, ride a horse, whatever your means of mobility, and explore the great North Coast environment. Several members of our board of directors are here today to support the approval of the MOU that you're considering between Humboldt Trails Council and the County of Humboldt. And many of our VTS volunteers are also here to demonstrate their support for the development of trails such as the Bay Trail and the McKay Community Forest. I will now ask the board members and the VTS volunteers who are here to stand. Thank you very much.
My name's Reese Hughes, and about 10 years ago, along with Stacy Becker, right there, we were really part of the group that started the Volunteer Trail Stewards with a few other people. We piloted that program on the Hammond Trail and at the Friends of the Dunes, and after a couple of years of sort of figuring out what worked and what didn't work as well, we expanded to the Arcata Community Forest more than 8 years ago, and shortly after that, the Hickshari Trail. The Waterfront Trail North has been added, the Eureka Wharf Trail, the Bay Trail North. In McKinleyville, the Mad River Bluffs and Chigacho, Lax Creek, and Freshwater Farms. Soon, the McKay Community Forest. And every site has its own personality. All of them, the volunteers do eyes and ears kind of things. Often they remove invasives, pick up trash, deal with graffiti, basic trail maintenance. In the case of several of them, we do pretty significant trail building, as Hank showed in the pictures. I thought I might give an example of this past Saturday. We had the Arcata Community Forest Work Day, one of our regular monthly work days. We started at 9. We finished about 12:30 with lunch that what 2 volunteers provided for us. By about 1:30, we were all out of there. We had more than 65 volunteers come. 27 of those were regulars who have come repeatedly over the years. And as Hank said, they really have a large level of knowledge and expertise. About 35 of them were first-time volunteers, probably may not never see them again, I'm not sure, because they were part of the HSU Long Distance Running Club. We wheelbarrowed rock to armor the trail up on Trail 12 where some significant logging had occurred in the summer. We naturalized areas around the trail with ferns and duff. There really was something for everyone to do. I've committed today to increasing everybody's salary by at least 2 times or 3 times. But most volunteers come because they want to give back. They're either users of the trail, they walk, they cycle, they are equestrians, they run the trails. They have learned skills. They've been part of a team. They see the difference that they make. They feel a sense of ownership. It's not unusual for me to go out on the trail and see a volunteer with a family member or a friend, and they're pointing at, oh, we worked on that switchback, or we did that crib wall, or we naturalized this area. It's a real sense of ownership. And I think the bottom line, one of the biggest advantages of this program, it'll be the same with the McKay Community Forest, is that sense of personal pride and ownership in the space. Anyway, that's my experience, and that's how I feel about it. And I want to have Karen come up and talk about the increase of numbers.
Thank you, Reese. Welcome.
Morning, Supervisors. Karen Underwood, a board member on the Humboldt Trail Council. And today I get to talk about the numbers that go to this maintenance of trails, and I'm really proud to do that. The numbers really support the interest that our citizens have in trails. As Reese pointed out, they come out every weekend, some for years at a time, and then when a new one comes, they can join that family. They're looking forward to coming out on those weekends and bring more people. I foresee just a real solid increase of that, especially with the McKay Community Forest coming online. Those trails, people are really looking forward to those. So the numbers, 1,137 volunteers came out and worked on our VTS work days in 2019. 1,137 volunteers. That was an increase of 25% over the previous year, 2018. And in 2018, we had an increase of 22% over 2017. So momentum is strong and continuing to grow. Let's look at the hours. 3,647 hours were donated by VTS volunteers toward trail maintenance in 2019. I want to break that down a bit for you. Arcata Community Forest volunteers contributed 966 hours in 19. Hickshari Trail volunteers, 662 hours. Hammond Trail, 539 hours. Eureka Wharf Trail, which is between C Street and Del Norte Street, 489 hours. The Eureka Waterfront Trail North, 440 hours. Very impressive numbers for our citizens. Back to the total, and this is very impressive, the total VTS hours for 2019, again, 3,647 hours. The independent sector value for volunteer time, which was posted in April of 2019, was $25.43 an hour. So if we do a little multiplication, our 3,000 plus hours come out to be $92,750 of value that people have contributed back to our county. Let's focus in on one of these VTS trails. The Hammond Trail is one of the original true trails that the VTS program started 10 years ago. The trail and the VTS coordinator, or the trail's VTS coordinator for all this years has been Stacy Becker, and she shared some other numbers with me about that particular trail. From July of 2010 to September of 2019, over 1,200 volunteers have worked on the Hammond Trail for a total of over 2,400 hours. I don't want to exaggerate, 2,400 hours. And that value is about $61,000 just for one of our trails over a 10-year period. These VTS trails, or these VTS days are not just about our volunteers, but also some of our county workers who are equally dedicated. Stacy asked me to acknowledge them, that without these folks, this couldn't have happened for 10 years. There was the county park staff, Mike Orr and Jason Ball in this group, and of course, Hank Seaman, who leads us all in this area. I want to give a nod to a handful, for Stacy, a nod to a handful of other people in the McKinleyville community or in that area who are continue to make this program successful. There are the returning volunteers who come every week. The Coast Guard has helped, HSU clubs, McKinleyville Elementary School's Eco Club, local churches and businesses, and particularly a special thank you to Eureka Natural Foods. It's a strong partnership that Humboldt Trail Council has with the county as in its residents, and one that I know we all value. I wish to thank you for your consideration today of the MOU. I think we make good partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Is this public comment or part of the?
Oh, I'm with them.
Okay, good. Great.
Yeah, that's right.
I figured as much, but
no, that's fine.
Otherwise, we would put the light on.
All right, you can time it.
No, you're good, fine.
No, that's all good. Hey, my name's Dennis Houghton, and I am now with the part of this good group of people over here. You know, it's funny when Reese was up here talking and stuff, because I used to work for City of Arcata for 23 years and retired out of there a couple of years ago. But anyway, when volunteer trail stewards first started, you know, there was only a few volunteers for those first handful of volunteer days and stuff. And at one point, I kind of had to say, Reese, man, is this going to happen or what, you know? But what's it been? 10 years later, 65 people showing up at the community forest. And, you know, I now working with the stewards here, I do other stuff too. But anyway, people are chomping at the bit to get out to McKay, I'll tell you that much. And it's going to happen, and it's going to be good. So a year from now, when we're back up here, we'll be just going, cool. You know, we got some good stuff done. I'm also with the Volunteer Trail Stewards. I coordinator with Ted and Pam Halstead down at the Eureka Waterfront North part of the trail behind Target and all that. And, you know, for volunteers, and this is what I've observed over a number of years working with volunteers, is that it provides buy-in for the community, you know, and stuff. People get jazzed about being out there. Teach them a few skills. They come back. You know, Reese says there's a core group in Arcata 25, and I know we're going to have that in McKay.
But, you know, it encourages that stewardship. What's cool, too, is that I see people of all ages out there. And, I mean, we got 60 and 70-year-olds out there working just as hard as anybody. Well, I'm getting there, so don't worry, you know. Yeah. Working harder than everybody.
That's right.
No, but, you know, the other aspect I think about, and, you know, there's always the concern when you know, Hank's putting together the plan and all that for the McKay, and, you know, just dealing with policing issues, let's just say, and stuff like that. You know, once you get that buy-in and you get people out there using it, and it's going to be heavily used at Northridge, behind Redwood Acres and all that, the stewards is going to provide sort of a policing aspect, you know, to it, just more eyes and ears out there. And so I think that's a good thing, you know. And as Reese pointed out, too, there's a job for everybody out there. I have a lot of people say, oh, I don't know if I can do trail work, you know, swinging a Pulaski or McLeod all day and stuff. There's a job, you know, not only from trail construction, but when you're doing the rehab and kind of naturalizing the area after. We take a lot of pride in that. And so we got something for everybody and stuff. So I just say, provide a little food for them and you'll get some people coming back. So, no, this is a great organization here and stuff like that. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Yep, please.
Good morning. Since you've already had one Dennis up here, I guess again to follow is a second Dennis. My name is Dennis Rael, and one of the hats I wear is a trail advocate. And I look around this room and realize, like, you know, I'm on the young side. I've only been doing this for about 15 years, and just all the hard work ahead of me, and that keeps going on. So thank you. I guess first off, I want to go ahead and just thank the Board of Supervisors for all of their support in the past, and hopefully that we can count on that in the future, and not just as your positions of Board of Supervisors, but also as community individuals, because that's what really makes this whole project. This morning, I'm fortunate enough, you had asked her, are you with this group or a community comment? You know, and I would say I'm both, because I'm obviously a part of the community. But I have the fortune to talk about the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. And I was lucky enough to be involved a little over 3 years ago with a few individuals to come up with this wild idea of what about if we created a fund? Because as Hank had mentioned, one of the things that had both City of Arcata, City of Eureka, and the county hesitate about building the trail was not getting the funding they could get, but how does that continued maintenance go on? So fortunate enough, early on, Rick Littlefield, the owner of Eureka Natural Foods and a longtime trail advocate, offered to put up a $25,000 match. And we said, okay, we're going to set an initial goal of $100,000. That would be above and beyond what we could believe. Shortly after that, within a year, we surpassed that goal, and we kind of went back and said, okay, we need to keep going and go ahead. And once again, like Hank had mentioned, right now we're closing in on $400,000. And this has been with over 450 individuals contributing ongoing support. But one of the basis of those, along with Rick's initial contribution with Eureka Natural Food, has been the business community. And right now we have over 20 businesses who have given a variety of ways. Wildberries Market stepped up to match that initial $25,000. And then we had numerous other businesses, a whole variety of parts of the community, from Danco Construction to Pacific Builders, going to multi-year commitments. We've set up then and had Hunter and Hunt. We've had the Sunrise Rotary. We've had Ramones. What are some of the other groups that I haven't mentioned yet? Well, Los Bagels, and that'll get thrown in, but also SHN, Recology, HealthSport, Revolution Bikes, and that's just a small part of the whole list. And so what I really want to say is that this has really been made all possible by a great grassroots level. All the support has been individuals sitting down, literally going door to door on some extent, having a lot of one-on-one conversations, and it's shown how much support this has. Everybody wants to be part of this successful project. And I remember coming to the board a little over 10 years ago saying, you know, I'd hoped I can see this trail completed before my kids leave high school. Well, sad to say they're both out of high school, but I see that on the horizon. To be able to get out and use part of that trail right now has been huge. And my kids come home and they talk about it and they go out on the trail. So thank you very much and hope we can count on your continued support.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hello, Board.
Welcome.
Emily Sinkorn also with the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund Working Group. And so to add on to some of the comments from Dennis, I think one of the more amazing things about the fund has been the wide range of donations from the community. Dennis spoke about how the fund was started and the key anchors of the fund in the business community. But it's also really amazing that in those 450 donations, we've had donations of $10 for the year or $10 for a month, all the way up to $250,000. So this really is a kind of across the community, we've seen that support. So I wanted to share some testimonials from some of the donors and what motivated them to donate. So I support the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund because I want trails in our future, and I know trails need maintenance. Trails separated from highways are much safer and more enjoyable to ride. I donated to the fund because thousands of people travel the corridor between Arcata and Eureka on a daily basis, but really only the strong and fearless or those that have no other options choose to ride a bike there. I know several people interested in commuting by bike, but only after the trail is completed and connects the two cities without having to bicycle on a highway, will they do so? I supported the Bay Trail Fund because I know the importance of the trail to the community. While I might be willing to ride the freeway, many riders and many potential riders are not. I live in McKinleyville and work in Arcata, although I own a car and have commuted the 5 miles from home to work by bike for over 25 years. I'm fortunate to have a route that avoids traffic through the Arcata Bottoms, and it's pleasant and carefree. I feel that many people who commute between Arcata and Eureka now would consider switching to biking if they had a safer, more enjoyable alternative to the 101 shoulder. I donated to the fund because I love bicycling. New Zealand and other places have developed a vast network of bike trails, a successful draw for tourists who support local businesses along the way. We can achieve something like that in Humboldt. So those are just some of reasons why people have donated. And also just really want to emphasize, as Dennis did, that reaching people has really been a grassroots effort through the working group. And besides the successes that Hank and Dennis have pointed out, I really want to emphasize that the reason that we're looking to expand the fund is that the more that we expand the fund, the more that there are kind of annual expendable funds that we can support the volunteer trail stewards and other groups that are really excited and interested to support trails on the ground. But it also really then enables the county and other jurisdictions to respond to emergency repairs in the long term. So this fund is for the long term. We're really focusing on what the volunteers are doing now, but this is for the future, as is completing the Bay Trail itself. So thank you very much to the board for supporting all the years of developing the Bay Trail, and especially these final 4 miles we'll have completed soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Anybody else with the group? I'll open it up to public comment on this item. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Mark Mueller, and I'm a resident of Eureka, and I bike a lot, as you might guess. And I supported the Bay Trail Fund because it is a real visible way that people see that there's interest in having these trails, and of course we need the maintenance money to keep them going good, but mostly it's, to me, a way to just say loud that yes, we need trails, we need to support other modes of transportation besides just driving a car around or a big truck or something. And so that's my reason for supporting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the public like to comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and thank you everybody for all of that. I mean, it's extremely impressive, and talk about maintaining it and expanding it and everything. There's another whole aspect of it. It's just plain good, clean fun. And great, as you said, that social aspect of working together. So thank you for all of your efforts. Supervisor Wilson.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'll just make the motion that we receive the staff report and approve and authorize Public Works Director to execute the attached memorandum of understanding with the Humboldt Trails Council regarding implementation of the Volunteer Trail Stewards Program on county-maintained trails.
Second.
Thanks. So with that, I want to say last week, the week before that, I was asked to give a presentation to the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, which is like our COG here, but for them, it's maybe 24 members or entities on that, something more than that. And the reason I was asked to speak on that was they are beginning regional trail planning, and they're starting now, right? And they have a lot of small communities that have their little trail projects here and there and around, and they have some connectivity, with the Sacramento River Trail and other things like that. But they really haven't embarked on an effort that we embarked on 20 years ago, and that was part of the message I was able to relay to them was, get started with your vision and don't be afraid, and don't stress too much about the naysayers, because the vision's quite large, and you're going to get the pieces that you get, and you'll go as far as you can, and you're not going to get anywhere without starting. And I think that they heard that message loud and clear. But one thing, and the co-presenter at that was the West Coast Rails Trails director as well. The thing I think they were kind of most impressed with in that discussion was the talking about the Humboldt Trails Council and the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund. I think that was really something that was very important for them to hear, was that the connectivity between these communities instituted for us really we're talking between Blue Lake, Eureka, Arcata, Manila, and now all the way down into Fortuna, right? And certainly with visions beyond, but the activities that have started to occur and the connectivity between these communities and those connections became very important, and spurred this type of community activism, which translated to actual monies and funding and efforts that supported the interconnectivity vis-a-vis for us, Humboldt County, between these entities and these counties or in cities. And so they were very excited to hear about that, that's possible, and that was encouraging to them. And so I want to say that I think that what you guys have talked about today and what we're setting forward, and I believe is fairly precedent setting, at least for the state of California, if not the nation, in terms of how smaller communities are connecting with this kind of infrastructure. And I don't mean just physical infrastructure, but social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. And I want to thank you guys for being trendsetters in that effort. And so once again, Humboldt County is in the lead in terms of how we have this kind of connectivity within our rural community, because that was really what they were talking about. How do we connect these rural communities of Roseville and Marysville and Rockland and Yuba and just all these places that to them they just hadn't really thought about how we're going to connect them, and that they really saw that your effort was something that they saw as very encouraging, and so your efforts are not just for us, they're a guiding light for others. So thank you so much.
Supervisor Bohn.
Well, I appreciate, because I remember it was about 5.5 years ago, Reese and some of you stood up here and said, if you guys do the McKay, we'll be there. And since then, I've talked to I manage 11 acres that are surrounded by the McKay, and we've made a deal. We're making a deal because I happen to know the board of directors real well at Redwood Fields. That's going to be one of the dropping points where somebody can park. It's already established. We mentioned Northbridge. That's we got a $350,000 grant. We left parking for equestrian and regular vehicle traffic. And the other thing is it always amazes me because people in the immediate area going, why are people driving to walk? But it's kind of like the guy looking for the parking place right in front of the gym before he goes in. So it's not as easy for everybody. But I know the Cutton area is extremely excited. I don't know if we're getting ready to accept 190 acres more with working with the Trust for Public Lands to add to our working community forest, which is huge to have, so we can replicate what we're doing. I think we're working on the backside of a $650,000 grant. The Seas have been out there doing a lot of work. This spring, we're going to be able to open that for us. And I can tell you, I started fishing in Ryan Creek 58 years ago when Roger Radoni's dad ranched down there because we lived right next to it. So I'm really familiar with it. I'm probably out there 2 or 3 days a week now because I live close enough to it. But what we've done allowed for some development and some buffer between logging and the residential out there. It's been a great project, and I can't say enough about our public works, and I think you guys have all said it enough. You all lead with, I don't think anybody realizes how lucky we are to have Hank Seaman running that part of the department. I mean, he's the guy, he doesn't say much, but damn, he gets a lot of stuff done. He goes out and fights for it, you bet. And I may get in trouble for saying that because it doesn't like any recognition either, but I think we're all fortunate to have it. But as we look at the Hammond Trail and all the trails we're doing, as Mike mentioned, between Arcata and Blue Lake, it's what the people are asking for. And as we move in, I still bike for an old man a lot. I like to take my dog out in the McKay. I remember the original meeting we had at Winship 5.5 years ago. There was close to 300 people there. We filled that room up, and I asked everybody how many people walked in the McKay and hiked in the McKay. And about 1/2 to 2/3 of the room raised their hand. And I said, we're doing this because you guys are all trespassing right now. Right. And I think we're going to see eventually when this is all done, we're going to, we worked with the Northbridge neighbors a lot to put a parking lot that was not going to infringe on their life, but still be able to be accessed. And we ended up with a wonderful project that will open eventually because we've got all our ADA and MET and stuff like that. So, but I wanted to thank the trust because that was something we needed, a commitment from you guys that you would help us maintain that because we just don't have the budget, and you guys are proven, and I can guarantee you, as Reese said and everybody else, the people in Cutton want to work on it too. And I mean, I get a daily phone call about a camp that is maybe starting. I've got a maintenance guy out at Redwood Fields that goes out and looks. We run a lot of folks and try to give them a pamphlet on services, but they can't be there because it infringes on other people's rights. So as we move forward, I think the commitment you guys have made has been great, and thanks to everybody involved. And to Dennis's comment when he named off all those names, understand most of those are small family, local owned businesses, and you guys aren't the only one they give stuff to. They, by far, they donate to auctions, they donate to causes, they support our community. So there you go. Buy local. You don't have to go on the internet.
Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Boy, what a long ways we've come over the last 35, 40 years. I can remember back when I first started working with the county when I was at RCAA on getting the Hammond Trail completed. And there were many people who called it a communist plot. And, have we come a long way from that attitude? I mean, and I used to say to people, well, you got the root word right, community, out of communism, but truly it is a community effort. And I think what we've spoken about here today about the social networks that develop around all of this, not just the infrastructure and the physical things, but the social elements. I think somebody said it, when you get out on the trail, There's no Democrats, there's no Republicans, no greens, reds, whites, or blues. It's just people with their children, with skateboards, with rollerblades, with dogs, strollers, you name it. And you see people getting to meet their neighbors, you know, and it really is this incredible process happening in our community where we're getting to know each other better, because when we're on the trails, we slow down and we take the time to get to meet each other and see what's going on. So it couldn't be done without all of you, and I really admire and support what both these groups have done, the Bay Trail Fund as well as the council. We couldn't do it without you. And my only reluctance here today with this particular agenda item is that rather than $3,500 cap, I'd like to see it at least 3 times that, 10,000 or whatever. And I would like to encourage the Public Works Director to perhaps come forward during the budget process and identify a budget line item for this, because as was mentioned earlier, $3,500 is saving us $60,000 or $100,000 in terms of maintenance effort. And it's not just the money saved in maintenance, it's that preventative work that saves even more money and gets people involved in these trails. So I would encourage that as an ongoing budget item. But again, thank you everybody in the community, especially the trail volunteers, that without the coordinators, the volunteers wouldn't come, you know. So Stacy and all of you out there that do that coordinating work makes it easy for us to show up on a Saturday and help out. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bass?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not a lot to add other than, well, one, it was nice to see you, Reese. Where are you? And not in an airport this time. It's like you'd think I could see him on a trail somewhere, but no, I see him, you know, where we're like stuck in one place. I know I have to get on a trail, and why do I? Sorry. So anyway, what I was going to say is, you know, prior to my time at the City of Eureka, I really didn't know that much about what trails were out there or what was being offered, and I'll say I certainly did get to know a lot more of the challenges of just getting trails done, and every time, you know, about once or twice a week, I do go down to the trails that surround the City of Eureka. I don't get out of town a whole lot until, well, unless it's an airport, yeah. I'm gonna have to do something with you. Maybe not today, but we're gonna put them, well, anyway. Every time I walk down there, I think how hard it was, you know, to get people to be, you know, excited about it at the time. At least it felt like it was pulling teeth, and how many years it took to get done. And you know, I'm thinking more than 10 years. And you know, we started, I think, the Hikshari before I left the city, and you know, it was like it takes such a long process. Is basically what I'm trying to say. And then you don't think about the numbers of people that are needed to take care of the trail through the years. And I think the numbers that we heard today of the number of people, the volunteers, and the hours, the dollars that the dollars that they raise, I think it was really good to hear that, because it shows just how much excitement there is for the trail vision throughout the county. And yes, one of these days I will go trespassing in other districts and check out the entire trail system, but I just know how much I appreciate you know, that's those that are closer to me. But I just, you know, never realized how much work goes into it until hearing a presentation like this. So, and yes, trails may not be everyone's vision of what we should do, but I think once they're on the trails and they realize the beauty and how it changes your view of your entire community, I think most people come to understand the trails are really important. And yes, Hank Seaman is pretty amazing as well. Had to sneak that in somewhere.
Thank you, Supervisor Bass. Just very, very briefly, because it's all been said, I'm just really proud to have you as partners. We'll move forward together. With that, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So I know we have a time certain for 11. I would like to ask the Public Works Director how long the bid process for the Lucas Street. Okay, I'm going to make a decision and we'll go forward with the Lucas Street bid process. Welcome, Director Mattson.
Good morning, Chair Fennell, members of the board. Tom Mattson, Director of Public Works. Subject of this item this morning is a public hearing, so if you would open the public hearing.
I open the public hearing in order to accept proposals for the sale of real property located at 2769 Lucas Street, Eureka, APN 015-111-008.
Thank you. This is approximately a 6.74 acre property that is vacant and undeveloped. It is a redwood forest with wetlands and Greenway Gulch. The county purchased this property in 1916 to expand the old county hospital. Since that time, it has not been used. On October 4th, 2019, County Planning Commission declared the property in compliance with the general plan. You have authorized the sale of this property with the funding to go for homeless housing. And at this time, we would ask that if you have any bids, or are there any sealed bids, that they be opened by the board. If not, that oral bids be heard. And if not, that this item be remanded back to staff for further review.
I make a motion for staff's recommendation.
I'll second that, but I want to say that I received an email just before we came here today at 8:59, and it's from a Myrtletown resident who, I'll just summarize, wants the board to consider not selling the property, or at the very least consider that he feels that there's not enough public parks in the Myrtletown area, and that maybe this area might be something to address with regards to that. I'll forward this email into the record if you guys didn't receive it, and it can be something that can be of consideration or discussion at a later time. So, thanks.
Supervisor Bass?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's I was going to mention that. I know we all, I believe, were copied on that from Kathy, and it has been a concern throughout the years. You know, I've been out there. I mean, grew up out there, and but one of the challenges in the past, one that's come up, because that property's been mentioned before, and people don't necessarily recognize that versus cities, where cities provide playgrounds, often, you know, counties don't provide playgrounds. What we have is kind of a different creature. That's not saying that there couldn't be, you know, some discussion on that. I think the point I was going to respond to the person, like you said, it came in very late, is basically, I think our decision to put this on them, you know, out to get bids was done a while ago. So to me, that's kind of a different conversation to have. But I think I wanted to mention that I heard that also, and I think it's worthy of the conversation. But I don't know if I don't think it fits in this piece. And I was going to ask Tom Matson, the director, if he had what his thoughts were on that.
Yes, historically the county has provided outdoor recreation, such as the McKay Tract. The Parks Division has struggled mightily over the years for funding. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, so requesting a new park would have to be like the McKay, which in the future is going to generate its own revenue to pay for itself. Historically, mostly service districts. We do have one playground at Freshwater, but mostly it's service districts within the unincorporated area that provide those type of amenities, such as McKinleyville, which has taken on parks powers and has some very beautiful parks. Manila has a park under the service district. Lolita takes care of one, basically. There's nonprofits that have them. We had Tooby Park. We turned it over to a nonprofit in the Garberville area because we could not afford to keep it running. You have Redwood Acres. So historically, the county has not provided those types of parks. That would be a whole new venture for us.
Supervisor Wilson?
And this area is under Humboldt Community Services District, is that correct? And I guess, you know, I will respond this individual and maybe ask them to talk to the Humboldt Community Services District to think about expanding their breadth of services, as so many other community services districts do as well. So we'll see. I just want to make sure that the voice was heard, but I still want to move forward with staff recommendation, and I'm okay with that.
Supervisor Bohn?
and have, over the last 25 years, had this discussion quite a bit with Community Services District. Redwood Fields is the only public playground, tot lot, bocce ball courts, basketball, barbecue area with parking available in the Cutton area. And we were able to secure from the county Quinby funds for that part of the structure. Humboldt Community Services District, within their realm of possibilities, can do it. There hasn't been a lot of interest in it, and so
Sitting there.
because I would love to give it to somebody else, but anyway, that's been the norm, and the financial part, the same reason the county doesn't do it. So,
But yeah.
So at this point, is there, no, I don't open, can we open the bids now?
If you have bids, please open them.
No bids? No bids.
Then you
Okay,
can call
then-
for oral bids on the property.
I call for an oral bid on the property. No bids? Okay, then with that,
Remand it back to staff for further review.
send it back to staff for further review. All righty.
Is there a
That's it?
minimum bid price?
The minimum bid price is the appraised value of the property was $375,000. An oral bid would have to be 10% or 10% above that, which is $393,000 by government code.
I thought it was 5.
5%, yes.
Okay.
We unfortunately can't auction.
no,
We have to
and
follow
not to
government
put anybody on the spot, so do we reevaluate the appraised price? Because
We're
if I was a betting man, I think there's people in the room interested in the piece of property.
I would believe that was already my direction to staff, understanding we didn't have a lot of interest in it at the appraised value then, because the real market value is what people will pay for it, not what somebody says on paper.
And part of that appraised value is obviously evaluating the timber. What's the total acreage on it?
6.74, I believe.
So you wouldn't be able to get a 3 acre, okay.
Yeah, and there is a significant portion that is wetlands.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was 5% above for world.
You are correct, I was wrong. It's 10% down if we had a bid. It's 5% above the minimum bid for an oral bid above a sealed bid.
Okay. Well, in that case, we had a motion to accept staff. I think we can still go ahead with that because we've gone through the process. Okay, great. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Well,
Thank
good
you.
luck, Director Mattson. And that will bring us to our time-certain item, which is a whole bunch of closed session items. And I'll go to Council Billingsley.
Yes, Chair. It's the intention of the Board of Supervisors to meet in closed session on 8 items. 6 of those items are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. Those 6 items are Hum CPR versus County of Humboldt, CV 190875, Lehman versus County of Humboldt, CV 2000200, Hawk Valley Farms versus County of Humboldt, CV 2000236, Blank versus County of Humboldt, 119 CV 3055, Hum Map versus County of Humboldt, CV 180425, and Jaros versus County of Humboldt, 18 CV 7383. There are 2 additional matters. The first is a conference with the labor negotiator pursuant to 54957.6 to meet in closed session to review the county's position and instruct its designated negotiator, Kelly Barnes, on the represented and unrepresented groups listed in item K2. And there's also a pursuant to Government Code 54957, a public employee performance evaluation for the position of county council.
Thank you for going through that list. Is there any public comment on our closed session items?
Hello, Thomas Mulder again. I tried requesting some of the documents to see what you guys are really talking about, but I guess none of it you can really look at right now because it's in the courts. As far as the hum CPR thing, obviously that's property rights, I think, something like that. So let's remember to protect people's property rights. The main reason I hung around, I was closing up my year and I went through notes and the blank employee, going through that. I want to remind you before I don't know what happened, if he was put on leave or how it went. That individual said all cannabis people have never paid taxes. I'd asked actually for a formal apology. Never ever received one. But if there is some sort of employment thing where the county is trying to figure out if they have reason to let someone go, making a statement like that towards an industry of many individuals that have paid taxes, I think that's something to be considered. And as I said, I was going through my notes end of the year and I came across that one. So that's why I hung around here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment on that? All right, so we will now go into closed session, and for the benefit of Access Humboldt, I'm not 100% sure how long it's going to take us. Do we want to say we'll come back? Council Billingsley, any idea how long we'll take?
I would give a rough estimate, an hour, possibly 90 minutes.
An hour?
It's just a guess.
So let's say 1 o'clock. We'll try. Thank you. Okay, great. So we're back in session, and ask the County Council to update us on our decision-making process in closed session. There's a number of items.
Thank you, Chair. The following is the closed session report. For items K2, K6, and K7, there is no reportable action. For item K3, the board voted unanimously to authorize an appeal of HUM CPR's challenge to the county zoning implementation. For item K4, the board voted unanimously to authorize the risk manager to sign a retention agreement with the firm of Remy Moose Manley to defend the county in the action challenging the county's approval of a cannabis manufacturing facility in Garberville. For item K5, the board voted unanimously to authorize the risk manager to sign a retention agreement with Remy Moose Manley to defend the county in the action challenging the denial of cannabis permits for Hawk Valley Farms. For item K8, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to authorize the risk manager to sign a retention agreement or letter of engagement with the firm of Colantuno, Highsmith, and Watley to represent the county, and also authorized outside counsel to pursue any and all legal remedies that are determined to be in the best interest of the county after consultation with and agreement from County Counsel's office. For item K9, the board voted unanimously to authorize the chair of the board to execute the proposed agreement regarding deed conveyance, the request for full reconveyance, and restriction of authorized signers agreement, and any and all agreements and documents thereto related.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.